Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Pastoria Hydros going up against the Melemele Rumbles in a rematch from our inaugural season's champions game. But as they have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at this tail of the tape where for the Hydros, they are currently sitting in 3rd place, and that is only because they had a bye last round. They could very easily move themselves back up to the top of the leaderboard, but looking to stop that from happening is the Melemele Rumbles, who are currently sitting on the bottom of the leaderboard. But with all that said, let us know in the comments below who you think's going to win this matchup. Will it be the water decks? Will it be the fighting decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And starting off this matchup, it is the Ruins of Hope deck for the Hydros. They are moving that Carvanha into the active spot. They've got the Poplio on the bench. They've got the two Briones and the Sharpedo already in hand. The Rumbles using their Beach Bash deck move the Sandygast into the active spot. They've got both Palisades in hand plus the Medicham and the Guzma. It is the Poison Barb being pulled for the Hydros, who, as we said, they're sitting in 3rd place, whereas the Rumbles currently sit in that Wooden Crown position. They do not want to be the first team to go from a champions season and then eventually find themselves in that Wooden Crown place. As the Poison Barb put on the Carvanha, they move it over to the Rumbles, who do pull the Meta-type. That is fantastic, already having the Medicham in hand. They get a first energy onto the Sandygast and immediately play the Guzma, ridding that Poison Barb into the discard pile of the Hydros, who do pull their Professor's Research. They can immediately get an additional 2 cards out of their deck. They're going to get the Poplio, their second one, plus the Rare Candy. And this is our game 1 in a 3-game series. All 3 games, teams get 2 points for every victory, but we count every point they take throughout the matchup, plus every bit of damage in all 3 matches as well. As the first energy onto the Carvanha, no evolutions yet, 20 damage onto the Sandygast here. And it comes back over to the Rumbles, who do get their second Meta-type. Sandygast, having 60 health left, does get its second required energy for that Sandy Shot that does do 30 damage. Medicham coming online, it has that high jump kick, only requires 1 energy, and the second Meta-type going onto the bench as well. Palisade does require 4 energy, so they're going to wait to get that online, going with the Sandy Shot, 30 damage, halving the health of Carvanha. The Hydro is pulling the Tapu Fini, and we've seen the power of Tapu Fini and Primarina when they're online together. Both the Briones coming online, as well as does the Sharpedo, who only requires 1 more energy to do 50 damage with that Crunch. It's got 60 health remaining, and Tapu Fini takes that last bench position, 50 damage, leaving Sandygast with only 10 health remaining. If they flip their heads, they get to discard a random energy from it too, but they do flip the tails. This could buy the Rumbles a little bit of time. And from their Beach Bash deck, they do pull their second Medicham as well. They can immediately get that online. So they're having to think about how they want to approach this here. And they are holding that Palisade over the Sandygast. Do they want to go for the evolution? They won't be able to go on the offensive just yet. They get an energy onto the Medicham though. And they do go with the Sandy Shot. They're willing to give up the Sandygast to get that 30 damage onto the Sharpedo. It comes back over to the Hydros. They get their second Carvanha. And they are going to get a first energy, 3 required on the Tapu Fini. The Crunch discards Sandygast from the board, and the Hydros will take the first point here in game 1. They're not concerned about that discarded energy, because that's going to happen regardless, even though they did successfully flip their heads. Now the Rumbles need to decide. They go with the Medicham going into the active spot, keeping in mind they've got a second Medicham in hand. They just pulled their own Poison Barb as well. They are going to get this Pokemon tool on the Medicham. Only 1 Pokemon tool can be attached per Pokemon, and a big part of the meta in Season A3 of the PokeType League TCG has been these Poison Barbs, as the high jump kick wipes Sharpedo immediately off the board in response. So it's 1 point to each team. The first to 3 will win this match. Tapu Fini being moved into the active spot. Still requires 2 more energy, but it is the Pokeball being pulled for the Hydros. There's a Tapu Fini remaining in the deck, so now they've got all their basic Pokemon out of their deck. They've still got a Sharpedo and 2 Primarinas inside of it though, as that second energy onto the Tapu Fini. The Persimmon being pulled for the Rumbles. They immediately get that onto the bench. It does require 2 energy for that Let's Throw to do 40 damage, but the high jump kick, another 50 damage from Medicham, halving the health of Tapu Fini, as the Hydros are going to pull their second Rare Candy. These are irrelevant now because both Briones are online, but their Special Drain, 60 damage onto the Medicham. It does restore 20 health for the Tapu Fini, but it is going to have to contend now with that poisoning thanks to the Poison Barb. and the second Persimmon has been pulled for the Rumbles as well. That Let's Throw does 40 damage, but it does an additional 40 damage if there is a Persimmon on the bench. The high jump kick onto Tapu Fini, bringing it down to 10 health remaining, and the poisoning will finish the job. The Rumbles are 1 point away from taking game 1. As we said, they want to prevent the Hydros from getting back on top of the leaderboard, but not just that, they want to make their own way back into Victory Road after missing out last season. The big Malasada being pulled for the Hydros, and they've got Brion only requiring 1 energy for this Wave Splash that does 30 damage to wipe Medicham off the board. The next point will win this game, but that poisoning is now onto the Brion, and this is fantastic for the Rumbles because they've got both Persimmons on the bench. They do choose the middle one, moving it into the active spot, and as we said, the Let's Throw, as they pull the Acer Roller, they get that second energy onto the Persimmon. With the second Persimmon on the bench, this does 80 damage, and the Beach Bash deck will take game 1 over this Ruins of Hope deck. And as we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. But it will be the Hydros going first in game 2. They are going to be using their Luminous Frost deck. We can see the Alolan Vulpix and the Vanillite, in hand. They are going with the Vanillite into the active spot. It's got that Sweets Relay, only requires 1 energy, but they've got the Alolan Ninetales in hand as well. That Blizzard does damage to benched Pokemon. As the Rumbles are using their Rock Face Rumble deck, they've got a Timber in the active spot and a Timber on the bench. We can see the Lycanroc in hand, plus the Professor's Research, but both teams have got a Professor's Research. As the Sandshrew is pulled for the Hydros, they play their own, and they do get the second Vulpix, and they get the Sand Slash as well. Sandshrew going immediately onto the bench. They've got the leftovers in hand as the Girder is pulled for the Rumbles. Now, they can't evolve it on their first turn, second turn in the match, but they play the Professor's Research to get the second Girder and the big Malasada. They do get an energy onto the active Timber, so it can go for this Corkscrew Punch for 20 damage onto the Vanillite, bringing it down to 40 health remaining. The Hydro is pulling the Vanillish, though they can get this online evolving Vanillite here, and that Sweets Relay from Vanillish does do 30 damage on the first turn. They've also got that leftovers, where at the end of every turn the Hydros have Vanillish will restore 10 health whilst it's in the active spot. Sand Slash and Ninetales both online as well, and the Sweets Relay 30 damage. And on every consecutive Sweets Relay, instead of just doing 30 damage, it will do that additional 20 as the Rumbles pull their rare candy. There's no Conkeldurr in hand, but the Girder is immediately moved into the active spot and on the bench. Both Girders here ready to go, and that Strength being set up with its second energy, 40 damage onto the Vanillish here from Girder, bringing Vanillish down to 30 health remaining. The Hydro is pulling their second Ninetales as well. They could get that second Vulpix onto that final bench slot if they choose, as they get a first energy onto Ninetales, who does require 3, but there's 50 damage onto the Girder from Vanillish. With the leftovers, it does restore 10 health, but it's only got 40 health remaining, which means it is in discard range of the active Girder. And the Rumbles pulling their own leftovers, get an energy onto the benched Girder here. Thinking about how they want to approach this, they're having a look at the Sand Slash, who does do 20 damage with that Spike Armor. It only requires 1 energy as well. They've got the Lily in hand, who can only restore 60 health from a Stage 2 Pokemon, being the Conkeldurr. And they do get the big Malasada onto the Girder as well, and with the leftovers, it will get it back up to 30 by the end of this turn. And there is that 40 damage to discard the Vanillish from the match as the Rumbles take the early lead here in game 2. They're trying to take this overall series by the end of this game. They want to try and get the clean sweep, just like they did in that Champions game from Season A1. And the second Vanillite has been pulled for the Hydros. They're thinking of getting that onto the bench, and that is exactly what they do, as they've got the Alolan Sand Slash in the active spot, and they do get an energy onto it, so it can go for this Spike Armor, 20 damage here onto the Girder. But if it takes damage in the next turn, Sand Slash does 40 damage back to the opposing Pokemon. A Rockruff has been pulled for the Rumbles, immediately moved onto the bench, keeping in mind they've had a Lycanroc in hand, that midday Lycanroc that is inside this deck all since the very start of this matchup. The Rumbles thinking about how they want to approach this. They've just got an energy onto the Lycanroc. And they choose not to go on the offensive here. A very interesting decision now. If they got an energy onto that bench Gerdo, they could have retreated the active one and still kept on the offensive. They pull the Rare Candy, do the Hydros, getting a second energy onto the Ninetales. The Sand Slash with the Spike Armor takes Gerdo off the board, getting the first point for this Luminous Frost deck. As we said, the Hydros, they want to get back on top of the leaderboard. They've been having a great showing in Season A3 as the Soul Rock is pulled for the Rumbles. It is the Lycanroc being moved onto the bench, but it's a second energy for the Gerdo with this strength. 40 damage onto the Sand Slash, but there will be 40 damage done back to the Gerdo thanks to that Spike Armor of Sand Slash here. The Hydros have just pulled another Vanillish as well, immediately getting that onto the bench. And they're going to retreat the Sand Slash. It's Ninetales being moved into the active spot. This Blizzard does 60 damage. It does 20 damage to all benched Pokemon on the side of the Rumbles there. So Lycanroc being brought down to 80 health as well. And it's a second point for the Hydros. They need one more to take game 2 and continue the fight in this series. Lycanroc being moved into the active spot. And Rare Candy once again being pulled for the Rumbles. They're no good to them anymore though, because the two Gerdos have been discarded. Second energy onto the Lycanroc. A Vanilluxe has been pulled for the Hydros. This double spin, 2 energy, but for each heads, because it gets 2 flips, 80 damage. But it's the Blizzard that will consistently do that 60 damage to the Lycanroc, who has 20 health remaining. And it is the second Rockruff being pulled for the Rumbles. They do get a third energy for this crunch that Lycanroc can do. If they flip ahead, Ninetales will have to discard an energy as well. 80 damage, bringing Ninetales down to 30 health. That will be the coin flip. They get the tails, but it doesn't really matter now because the Lycanroc is all by itself. The Hydros only need one more point, and with this Blizzard, they are going to wipe Lycanroc off the table, and the Hydros with their Luminous Frost deck will take game 2 over the Rockface Rumble deck. But it is our final table reset here between these two sides to determine the overall series winner. Both teams have gotten 2 points for each win, as it is the Hydros going first, this time with the Brooklet Hill deck. We can see the Shoulder, the only basic Pokemon they have in hand, but they've also got the Cloyster for the Rumbles. They've got their Rock Steady deck that does have those Midnight Lycanrocs. It is the Mienfoo going into the active spot, the Rockruff on the bench. They've also got a Minior and a Mudsdale in hand, plus that Midnight Lycanroc. But here we go, game 3, our final game in this series. The Araquanid being pulled for the Hydros. They don't want to lose a game by not having any benched Pokemon. The second Minior being pulled for the Rumbles. The first and only required energy for the Mienfoo. This Kickshot can do 40 damage. They just have to flip heads, otherwise it does nothing. And it is a Tails. This is great for the Hydros because they do not want to lose Shoulder this quickly. It's got 70 health overall. 2 kick shots will get it discarded from the board, but it is the Dewpider being pulled for the Hydros. They immediately get that onto the bench. The Tackle from Shoulder, 10 damage. They opt to not get the Cloyster online just yet. Mienfoo being brought down to 50 health as the Pokeball is pulled for the Rumbles. They're going to play that immediately, getting another basic Pokemon, and they do get the Mudbray out of their deck. Think of getting that Lycanroc with the Bloodfang, only requiring 2 energies onto the bench. They do get a first energy now onto it as well. They're having a look at that Mudsdale, capable of 140 damage, but it does 40 damage to itself at the same time. And this time they do get the heads with the kick shot, 40 damage onto the Shoulder, bringing it down to 30 health. I'm sure they're wishing they'd gotten that one turn earlier as well, as the Pyukumuku is pulled for the Hydros. That name is way too fun to say. And the Araquanid comes online as well. Now Araquanid does require 3 energy, but Cloyster, who's now online, requires a second one, and for that guard press it does 50 damage. They've got the Lana supporter card in hand that can only be played as well when Araquanid is in play. It allows them to be able to drag a bench Pokemon from the side of the Rumbles into the active spot. There will be a new member for the Rumbles though, because that Mienfoo has been discarded by Cloyster. That Hydra has taken the early lead, the second Lycanroc being pulled for the Rumbles. Now Lycanroc, this Bloodfang does 50 damage. It does an additional 50 if Lycanroc has less health than the opposing Pokemon, but at the moment Cloyster has 70 health, so this Bloodfang 50 damage that is reduced by 20 thanks to that guard press that does reduce damage Cloyster takes in the next turn. And the Hydros opting to play the big Malasada as well. This will get Cloyster back up to 50 health. They've just pulled the fishing net, and they do go with the Lana. They can drag one of these active Pokemon into the, one of these basic Pokemon into the active spot, choosing one of the 2 Miniors that were on the bench, and the guard press 50 damage onto Minior here. And so Cloyster will take 20 less damage in the coming turn as the Professor's Research is pulled for the Rumblers. They play that immediately. They get the Guzma, they get their second Mianfu. And they are going to get that Mudsdale online. It does require 4 energy for that higher horsepower as well. A lot of setup. But they do get a first energy onto Mudsdale here as it comes back over to the Hydros, who pull their own Guzma. And they get a second energy onto the Araquanid. They continue with the guard press, not choosing to play another Lana just yet. But with that guard press, the Hydros do take their second point, and they are 1 point away from taking this series over the Melemele Rumbles. And they opt to go with the Mudsdale in the active spot. Now, not just does it require 4 energy to go on the offensive, it requires 4 energy to retreat. And it's only just received its second energy here. There is the Poison Barb onto it as well. It is the second Pyukumuku being pulled for the Hydros here. And the Hydros are going to play their Guzma. This will discard that Poison Barb off of the Mudsdale, but you can't help but wonder why they moved the Mudsdale into the active spot. That Lycanroc could immediately go on the offensive, even though it only would have done 30 damage to the Cloyster, but there's 50 damage onto the Mudsdale from Cloyster here. And the big Malasada being pulled by the Rumbles. They play that immediately, restoring 10 health for Mudsdale back up to 100 health. It gets its third energy now. 1 more energy and it can go for the high horsepower here. But the Rumbles and their turn, it comes back over to the Hydros, who pull their leftovers. They get a third energy onto the Araquanid. They can retreat Cloyster if they want, but instead they continue with the guard press, bringing it down to only 50 health remaining. And again, Cloyster will take 20 less damage in the next turn. The Rumbles pulling their Mianshao. That Mianfu is still in hand, but now being moved into that last bench slot. And the 4th energy being put onto the Mudsdale, 140 damage, but it will do 40 damage to itself in the process, but 120 thanks to that guard press on the Cloyster. The Rumbles are able to take a point, but Mudsdale only has 10 health remaining. Araquanid moved into the active spot. Now Araquanid does do 60 damage. It does an additional 60 if the opposing Pokemon is a basic Pokemon, but they don't care. They just want the victory. They wipe Mudsdale off the board, and the Hydros with their Brooklet Hill deck take game 3 over the Rocksteady deck, and this moves them back on top of the leaderboard. But next round, they're going up against the Kitakami Rogues, who are yet to drop an overall series, whereas for the Rumbles, they'll be going up against the Olivine Raiders. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what cards you pulled today, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.